Imagine, for just a second, the person who has caused you the most profound, lingering pain in your life. The uncomfortable reality is, it is rarely an enemy. Enemies are predictable. Their motives are clear. The deepest, most fatal wounds are almost always inflicted by those we invite inside our own walls. They are the people to whom we have given our trust, our time, our energy, and sometimes our absolute devotion. You saw the signs. You felt the subtle shifts in their tone, the quiet acts of disrespect, the inconsistencies in their stories, and yet you continued to make excuses for them. Why? Because you have been sold a dangerous, pacifying illusion. The illusion is this: we are taught that endless forgiveness is a supreme virtue. We are conditioned to believe that giving someone a third, fourth, and fifth chance is a display of emotional strength. It is not. It is a blinding manifestation of fear. It is a sign that you fear losing their presence more than you respect your own dignity. Long before a single word is spoken, human beings are constantly reading each other. We are scanning for weakness, for boundaries, for what we can extract, and for what we can get away with. It is an ancient, evolutionary survival trait. When someone looks at you, they are subconsciously asking an invisible question: where is the line? And what are the consequences if I cross it? If they cross that line and you respond with pleading, with endless understanding, or with unearned forgiveness, you send a devastating psychological signal. You tell them that your boundaries are merely suggestions. You teach them exactly how to mistreat you. The philosopher Arthur Schopenhauer observed a brutal truth about human nature. We are fundamentally, undeniably driven by self-interest. According to him, the vast majority of our suffering does not stem from pure malice, but from our deliberate refusal to see people as they truly are. You project your own morality, your own guilt, and your own capacity for loyalty onto people who simply do not possess it. This must stop today. In this analysis, we are going to dissect the specific behaviors you must never trivialize. This is not about harboring petty hatred or seeking theatrical revenge. Revenge is an emotional reaction, and emotional reactions are a loss of power. This is about total mastery over your inner peace, your self-respect, and your future. Consider the first unforgivable offense: the intentional betrayal of trust. Trust is the ultimate currency of human interaction. It takes years to forge through consistent action, yet it takes mere seconds to burn to the ground. You must learn to ruthlessly distinguish between a mistake and a deliberate betrayal. A mistake is an error in judgment. A deliberate betrayal is a calculated action. When someone intentionally betrays you, knowing full well the psychological devastation it will cause, they are making a cold internal calculation. They are deciding, in that moment, that their immediate gratification is infinitely more valuable than your well-being. Many believe that with enough time and patience, a betrayer will eventually change. But history repeatedly shows us that repeated acts do not show a person in distress. They reveal a person's baseline character. A person who betrays without remorse is holding up a mirror to their soul. Never confuse the act of freeing yourself from anger with the obligation to give them their power back. To grant them trust again is to hand a loaded weapon back to the person who just shot you. When a person commits the second unforgivable offense, constant, insidious disrespect, your natural instinct is almost always wrong. When they drop an insult cleverly disguised as a joke, when they subtly humiliate you in front of others, or when they subject you to a constant drip of unfair comparisons and criticism, what do? You react. You want to explain why they are wrong. You demand an apology. You seek their understanding. This is a fatal strategic error. The uncomfortable reality is that over-explaining your feelings to someone who intentionally disrespects you is a subconscious plea for their validation. It is you handing them the remote control to your emotions and begging them to change the channel. When you argue, you step directly into their psychological frame. You signal that their words have successfully pierced your armor. Manipulators thrive on this friction. They want to see you scramble. They want you to desperately justify your emotions because a mind that is defending itself is a mind that is easily controlled. Now, compare that to the absolute, terrifying power of silence. Silence is an apex predator in the realm of psychology. Consider the third unforgivable behavior, emotional manipulation. Manipulators are rarely aggressive from the start. They are far too calculating for that. Instead, they use deeply subtle methods. They alternate between intense, overwhelming affection and sudden, freezing coldness to manufacture an artificial dependence. They reverse the roles, playing the victim so flawlessly that you end up asking for forgiveness when you are the one who was wronged. Little by little, they make you doubt your own intuition. When someone attempts to trap you in this web, when they try to make you feel guilty for their toxic actions, they expect a frantic defense. If, instead, you offer them dead, unyielding silence, you completely destabilize their reality. You deny them the emotional fuel they are trying to extract. When you master restraint, you transform from a reactive victim into a clinical observer of human nature. The rule of human behavior is simple. Those who speak less hold the power, while those who talk too much inevitably expose themselves. By forcing yourself to remain perfectly quiet under pressure, you become a dark mirror. The manipulator, deeply unnerved by your lack of a predictable reaction, will instinctively keep talking to fill the uncomfortable void. And as they speak, they will hand you all the psychological intelligence you need. They will reveal their insecurities, their hidden motives, and the true depths of their deceit. Schopenhauer explained that individuals who constantly put others down do so from a desperate, hollow need to feel superior. Their disrespect is not a reflection of your flaws. It is a desperate advertisement of their own internal weakness. The more you engage verbally with these behaviors, the more you normalize them in their eyes. You must realize that a relationship where you are constantly forced to justify your reality is not a partnership. It is an invisible prison. You break the bars of this prison through profound emotional restraint. When you stop giving people free access to your internal monologue, you cultivate a powerful aura of mystery, and human beings are deeply intimidated by what they cannot predict or understand. The respect you demand from the world does not begin with an argument. It begins with the quiet, stoic refusal to validate disrespect with your words. Let us analyze the true nature of boundaries. Most people operate under the delusion that a boundary is a verbal declaration. They sit their transgressor down, look them in the eye, and fiercely state, "You cannot treat me this way anymore." They believe that if they just explain their limits clearly enough, the other person will suddenly develop a moral compass. But history repeatedly shows us a much darker truth. Human beings do not respect declarations. They respect consequences. People do not trample your boundaries all at once. They test the perimeter like predators testing a fence. They push a tiny fraction today, a minor slight, a forgotten promise, a small favor they never return, and they observe your reaction. If you complain but ultimately stay, they mentally log that the fence is not electrified. They learn that your threshold for disrespect is highly negotiable. This brings us to the fourth unforgivable behavior, the one-sided extraction, or the opportunistic parasite. There are individuals who possess an uncanny, almost supernatural ability to appear in your life exactly when they need something from you. They need a favor, a loan, an introduction, or simply your time and energy. They are psychological chameleons, perfectly calibrating their words to make you feel essential. They make you believe you are highly important to them, when in reality, they strictly value the utility you provide. Then, the inevitable happens. The tables turn. You hit a period of darkness. You lose your leverage, your money, your influence, or simply your emotional bandwidth. You need someone to listen, or just their physical presence. And suddenly, these exact same people become ghosts. They manufacture brilliant excuses. They constantly postpone their help, or they vanish entirely. The uncomfortable reality is that this sudden disappearance is not a betrayal. It is a revelation. It is the brutal, unvarnished truth that their sweet words had long concealed. As Arthur Schopenhauer reminded us, pure self-interest is the invisible compass guiding the vast majority of human behavior. That is why you must train yourself to completely ignore promises and strictly observe actions. Authentic relationships are rooted in absolute reciprocity. They are not a parasitic commercial exchange where you are the perpetual supplier. True friends remain standing by your side when you have absolutely nothing left to offer, because they value the essence of who you are, not the benefits you represent. Ask yourself a very dark but vital question today. If tomorrow you were stripped of everything that makes you useful, how many people would still answer your call? When you identify an opportunist, your ego will scream at you to confront them, to point out their hypocrisy, and to demand fairness. Do not do this. Do not negotiate your worth. When someone proves they are only there to extract, you do not warn them. You quietly, ruthlessly, and permanently cut their access to you. Walking away without a dramatic exit is the ultimate enforcement of a boundary. It is a calm, consequence-driven action that terrifies those who seek to use you. It signals that your self-respect is so absolute that you are perfectly willing to amputate a toxic relationship to protect your peace. You command ultimate respect, not by fighting for it, but by proving that your presence is a privilege that can be revoked at any moment. We now arrive at the fifth unforgivable behavior, one that is perfectly designed to exploit your psychological vulnerabilities: the systematic destruction of your self-esteem. There are individuals walking among us who are fundamentally, organically incapable of being happy for your ascent. With every success you achieve, they immediately search for a flaw. With every ambitious dream you articulate, they meticulously predict your failure. They plant seeds of doubt so deeply that you eventually mistake their voice for your own. Why do they do this? Because striving for greatness requires immense effort, discipline, and risk. It is infinitely easier for a toxic, stagnant person to make you smaller than it is for them to become greater. When your ambitions are under siege, your biological instinct is to fight back. You want to prove them wrong. You want to showcase your competence, raise your voice, and passionately defend your vision. But you must understand the profound, fatal danger of an emotional reaction. An emotional reaction is never a display of strength. It is an immediate, unconditional surrender of your internal sovereignty. When you allow someone's petty criticism to make you angry or defensive, you are confirming their significance. You are loudly announcing to them, "Your opinion of me dictates my emotional reality." You hand them the strings, and you instantly become the puppet. Now, compare that to the terrifying power of emotional mastery. Emotional mastery is not the absence of feeling. It is the absolute, ironclad refusal to let your feelings dictate your outward strategy. When someone insults you, belittles your project, or attempts to trigger you, they are expecting a specific, predictable response. They expect you to shatter. The most devastating, disarming counterattack you can deploy is a dead, emotionless pause. Do not flinch. Do not defend yourself. Simply look at them. Let their poison hang in the quiet air between you. Maintain calm, unbroken eye contact. This deliberate pause under pressure makes you entirely unpredictable. Human beings are deeply unsettled by the unknown. When an aggressor strikes and meets a wall of cold, stoic silence, instead of a frantic defense, their brain registers a severe miscalculation. They suddenly realize they cannot read you. And what they cannot read, they can never, ever manipulate. You become an impenetrable fortress. You force them to sit in the awkward, humiliating echo of their own words while you remain completely untouched. If you continuously engage with those who sow doubt, you will eventually begin to internalize their poison. You will lower your standards. You will censor your own brilliance. You will give up on your potential simply to make the people around you feel more comfortable. You must learn to view their criticism not as an accurate assessment of your worth, but as a tragic confession of their own inferiority. Do not give them the emotional explosion they crave. Remain composed, unreadable, and violently focused on your own growth. By mastering your emotions, you strip manipulators of their only weapon against you. You prove that your mind is your own kingdom, and they do not have the clearance to enter. This brings us to the final, most dangerous behaviors: the repeated offense and the silent celebration of your downfall. When someone repeats the exact same destructive behavior without ever showing genuine remorse, you are witnessing the ultimate manifestation of disrespect. They will offer you empty, theatrical apologies. They will look you in the eye and say, "I am sorry. It will never happen again." And then, mere days later, you are met with the same lie, the same betrayal, the same manufactured chaos. The uncomfortable reality is that true repentance always brings about a radical, visible change in behavior. Words are utterly meaningless. Habits, however, always tell the brutal truth. If someone repeats the same offense, despite all the grace you have extended, it is no longer a temporary lapse in judgment. It is a calculated choice, and you are under no obligation to suffer the consequences of another person's conscious choices. This is where you must master the profound psychology of scarcity and value. In economics, a currency that is printed endlessly and handed out to everyone quickly becomes completely worthless. The exact same psychological principle applies to your forgiveness, your time, and your emotional energy. When you are always available, always understanding, and always willing to wipe the slate clean, you actively destroy your own perceived value. You teach the people around you that your presence is cheap. To command ultimate, undeniable respect, you must fiercely limit your availability to those who do not honor it. You must weaponize scarcity. When a person crosses the line, you do not argue, you do not plea, and you do not threaten. You simply remove your presence. By making your attention scarce, you instantly, dramatically elevate its worth. You force people to realize that access to your life is a highly exclusive privilege, not a fundamental right. This mechanism is incredibly crucial when you encounter the final, most insidious type of person, the one who secretly rejoices in your failures. These are the individuals who claim to support you, but whose entire demeanor shifts the moment you actually succeed. They subtly downplay your victories. They meticulously highlight your flaws. And they seem strangely energized, almost relieved, when you stumble. Jealousy almost always hides behind a counterfeit smile. If someone suffers when you grow, they absolutely do not deserve to walk alongside you. Your reputation in this world is not built by what you say you will tolerate. It is forged entirely by what you consistently, coldly refuse to accept. Unyielding, calm enforcement of your boundaries builds an ironclad reputation. The more you ruthlessly respect your own core values, the more you naturally attract allies who are capable of matching them. Never forget, authentic people will understand and honor your boundaries. Manipulators and parasites will violently fight them, solely because your boundaries prevent them from exploiting you. We must completely redefine forgiveness. Forgiveness can be an act of profound Stoic strength, but it must never become a permission slip for those who hurt you to do it again. True forgiveness serves one single purpose: to free your own mind from the heavy, toxic burden of anger. It does not mean forgetting the brutal lessons human nature has taught you, and it certainly does not mean keeping a destructive force inside your inner circle. If this analysis has awakened a new, unbreakable perspective within you, declare it in the comments. I choose respect over apologies. Subscribe and turn on notifications to continue mastering your understanding of human psychology, inspired by the darkest and most profound truths of philosophy. The boundaries you boldly protect today will entirely dictate the quality of the life you live tomorrow. Your peace is an impenetrable fortress. Guard the gates,